The world was white. Snow covered everything, muffling the usual sounds. It was December 24th, Christmas Eve. For Claire, it was a homecoming.
Her old Honda Civic crunched on the snow as she drove up the familiar driveway. She hadn't seen her family home in 5 years. 5 years in America. 5 years of silence. Guilt gnawed at her, sharp and cold like the winter air.
The house stood just as she remembered it, the faded blue paint now peeling in places. The mango tree her father planted, its branches bare against the stark sky. Even the chipped paint on the porch swing held a familiar comfort.
Her heart ached with a longing she couldn't quite name. Pulling up to the house, she turned off the engine. The silence was deafening. It was a silence filled with unspoken words, with years of hurt and resentment. She thought of her mother, her face etched with worry in her last letter. Her brother, always the peacemaker, caught in the middle. And her father, his silence the loudest of all.
Claire took a deep breath. It was time to face them. It was time to go home. The front door creaked open. It was her mother. Her face, once smooth, was now a roadmap of wrinkles, but her eyes, those kind, knowing eyes, still held the same warmth. The tears came before the words.
"Claire, my daughter," she whispered, pulling her into a hug.
Her brother, Kwame, stood behind her mother, a tentative smile on his face. He looked older, his shoulders broader. The years had treated him well.
He embraced her, the familiar scent of his cologne bringing back a flood of childhood memories. "It's good to have you home," he said, his voice gruff with emotion.
The house was warm, filled with the aroma of her mother's cooking. But beneath the surface, Claire felt the undercurrent of tension. The years of unspoken words hung heavy in the air.
"Where is he?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper.
Her mother sighed, her eyes downcast. "Upstairs resting. He's not well, Claire."
The stairs creaked under her feet, each step a reminder of her childhood. She paused at the door to her father's room. The door was slightly ajar and she could hear his labored breathing. Gathering her courage, she pushed the door open. He was lying in bed, propped up by pillows. He looked frail, smaller than she remembered. His hair, once thick and black, was now a crown of silver, but his eyes, those eyes that held a universe of wisdom, lit up when he saw her.
"Claire!" he rasped, his voice weak.
She rushed to his side, taking his hand in hers. It felt fragile, papery. "Papa!" she whispered, tears streaming down her face.
They spoke for hours that day. No accusations, no recriminations, just a father and daughter rediscovering the language of love. He told her stories of her childhood, stories she had forgotten. He spoke of his pride, his pain, his unwavering love. Before she left his room, he placed his hand on hers, his touch feather-light.
"Home is not a place, Claire," he said, his voice filled with wisdom. "It is wherever your loved ones are."
Dinner that night was a quiet affair. The silence, however, was no longer heavy with unspoken words. It was a silence filled with understanding, with the tentative steps of a family coming back together. Later, as they sat around the fireplace, sipping hot chocolate, Claire felt a sense of peace settle over her. There were still issues to be resolved, words that needed to be said. But for now she was content to simply be present, to savor the warmth of family. Her father's words echoed in her mind.
"Home is not a place, but wherever your loved ones are."
Looking around at her mother's tired but happy face, at her brother's quiet strength, Claire knew she was finally home, not in the physical sense, but in the deepest recesses of her heart. For home, she realized, was not a destination, but a journey of forgiveness, of love, and of the enduring strength of family.